What was that?
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. About to do even better.
Alright.
Once I get this lifting, you know? Okay, well, today we have arms and abs. It's probably my least favorite day. I don't really like to train these muscle groups because they don't feel like a workout to me. However, they're still needed. You know, you need the beach muscles, you need some abs, you need some arms, and quite frankly, it's what most people are looking for, right? So let me show you what I do today to train my arms and abs. The first thing I'm going to start off with is doing some ab rollouts. Now, with the abs, you got to think a lot of us have bad posture, right? So what happens over time is we start to slouch, and the abdomen gets contracted and it gets stuck. So kind of similar to the hamstrings I was talking about the other day when we're training legs, is you want to focus on stretching them out first, like getting a full lengthening movement. Because that's what's going to do is it's going to allow you to fully access that abdomen. So when I do my crunching motions, I can feel them a lot more effectively. So we're going to start off with some ab rollouts here. In other videos, I've showed you how you can use a band to help support your hips. I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to strictly go right into it. Just focus on slow, controlled reps and really try to stretch out that core. So let's get started with this and then we'll jump into some other stuff. Okay, I got a little pad. I got a little pad here for my knees. Now, a big thing to keep in mind with rollouts is you don't want it translating to the back, right? The lower back. Well, how do you do that? Well, you don't want to extend too much open, right? Because the second you lean backwards, that's when you're actually contracting all those back muscles. So instead, you want to try to stay on top of the weight, but try to open from your ribs and then close from your ribs, because that's what we're doing. It's kind of like the hamstring idea. You're pushing your butt away from you, right? You're not just leaning forward, okay? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to pull my chest away from my hips, keep my hips stable, and then I'm trying to re-engage them, okay? So I want to take that nice and slow here, okay? Make sure my feet are planted on the ground. I'm going to fully open and then close. Taking it nice and slow, maintaining control. And again, you know, when you're going into your first set as a warm-up, you may feel a little rigid, especially like me when, you know, you're working out first thing in the morning and your body's still waking up. All right, taking it nice and slow. Now you can get one of these ab wheels online. They're like 10, 13 bucks. I recommend investing in one because this exercise is crucial for full abdomen development. And as you see, as I continue to do more reps, I was able to get like further and further without feeling any type of stress or strain coming from my back. And that's the goal here, right? Is you're focused on the highest return for the least amount of time, right? But sometimes it will take a few reps in order for you to get those perfect ones down, okay? So take your time, you know, feel it out. Every one of your reps may look different until you find that nice groove to where you feel like it's isolated on the abs. So I'm gonna do a few more sets of this, you know, just taking my time with it, really trying to open up. How many do I do? However many it takes, right? Once I feel like my abs are kind of like engaged, but they're also stretched out, then I'll start doing a crunching motion. So I want to get rid of the abs first because abs are obviously even more boring to train than arms are. And the pump fucking hurts. It's not like a pump with arms where you're like, hell yeah, feels great. Pumping your abs hurts. Messing with your breathing. So I'm gonna do a few more sets of this and then we'll hit some crunches. All right, so now I'm gonna do a crunching movement. But when I do crunches, I do them a little bit different. I don't like to do them on the cables because I feel like that position doesn't allow me to fully open my abdomen. And what I mean by that is most people, when their knees are bent like this, they're getting this small range of motion where they're crunching, but they can't actually open their hips because their knees are bent and they're on the ground. Instead, what I'm gonna do is there's this box right behind me right here. I'm actually gonna lay flat on this box. So now when I'm actually doing a crunching motion, I can actually open my knees and flatten my abs. But if I'm doing a crunch where my knees are on the ground, right? My knees are like this, and I'm crunching in, I can't get a full extension all the way backwards. I can't actually get my knees to come back and pull my hips open to stretch my lower abdomen, okay? So what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna do a crunch on this box. And when I do a crunch on this box, it's going to be a lot more effective for me to open up and stretch my whole abdomen. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Took me a minute to find the angle, but let me show you what I'm talking about. So when I'm doing a crunch on like a traditional cable setting, my knees are bent on the ground, so I can't actually get a full opening of the lower abdomen, right? So instead, what I like to do is a crunch off of a box. That way, when I lay back flat, I get my full abdomen open. Let me scoot down a little bit. Okay. I can get my full abdomen open. You see how my legs actually are straight? But if they're bent and I'm on the ground, then you're going to get this kink right here in the abdomen. That's going to actually take out your ability to fully stretch it. So instead, I want to get my abdomen all the way flat. My arms are going to go above my head, and that's going to allow me to stretch open from the upper half of the abs. And what I'm going to do is just slowly crunch in, meet myself right in the center, and get a big squeeze. And then slowly release the squeeze. I'm not dropping, okay? I'm trying to control it the whole way through. So I'm coming up, squeeze it like it owes you some money, and then slowly open the squeeze. Breathe in when you're opening, and then breathe out when you come in closed. And then that way I can fully open my abs. And then if you want to challenge this a little bit, you can grab a plate and hold it above your head, which I'm going to do in a little bit here. Look, and the goal is, people say, oh, I can do like a bazillion crunches. I'm like, look, if you do them right, you shouldn't be able to do 10. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Oh. Yeah, that's much, much better. Okay, so again, key thing to keep in mind there is if you're not getting a full abdomen contraction, you're probably not developing it all the way. It'd be like if you're doing a bicep curl and you're going top range like this, which don't do that shit. Don't do those retarded reps where you're half, and then full. Like, you need a full range of motion if you really want to train the muscle effectively. So it's like, I don't want to do a curl like this. Your abs work very similar to your biceps, right? So you don't want to do a crunch like this. You want to fully open the abs and stretch that abdominal tissue. It goes from your chest all the way down to your pelvis. And when you open it all the way, you're going to get a full maximal stretch, kind of like if you're doing like an RDL for a hamstring. And then you're engaging, think about it, somewhere to take your shoulders and rolling them. You're sitting into your body, you're not sitting up. Okay, sitting up is not going to engage them, it's going to engage your hip flexors. What you want to do is roll into your body, like you're taking a towel and you're rolling it from your shoulders all the way to your hips. So give that a shot and let me know what you think. All right, I think the last thing I'm going to do today is strictly just some leg raises. Now, with a leg raise movement, I don't actually like to do it flat on the ground. I like to do it on a bench. That way my feet can dip a little bit below my hips. And what that's going to do is kind of the same concept as on the box is if you want to engage the lower abdomen, you need to get a little bit of a stretch in it, right? If you're on a flat surface, your feet are going to touch the ground and you're not going to get really that big of a contraction and a stretch in the lower abdomen. So I like to do it on some form of a bench. Now, it's really preference whether you want to do it on a slight decline or if you want to do it on a flat. I'm actually on a decline bench, but it's a little bit more flat because sometimes, like for instance, yesterday I trained legs. My hip flexors are a little bit tender, right? They were used and abused. So your hip flexors come into play, like I was mentioning, when you bring your knee up like this, and if they're exhausted, it's probably going to come into play and compensate in some way when I'm doing a leg raise. So I want to try to mitigate that. So I'm not actually doing it on a decline because the more decline that I'll go, the more tension I'll put on that hip flexor itself. So what I'm going to do instead is kind of keep this on a flat plane, and I'm going to allow that full stretch to happen in my lower abdomen and my pelvis with a little bit of rotation, and then I'm going to try to come and squeeze it back up. Now I don't need to get my feet all the way to my eyes, because the more my feet come past the center point of my pelvis, like for instance, if my legs are straight up in the air and they're on top of my hips, that's the full contraction of my lower abdomen. If I go any further backwards, I'm going to start rolling it up into my upper abs. So a lot of people, when they're doing leg raises, sometimes they feel it in the mid part of their abs or the upper abs, and they never get full isolation in the lower abs. Well, that's because you're going too far up. right? It's a small range of motion. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So when I'm laying backwards, first thing I'm gonna do is make sure that my shoulder blades are pinched, my back's nice and flat. I'm grabbing a surface that allows me to like anchor my upper body because I don't want any movement in that. I'm keeping my legs nice and straight. I'm getting a little bit of a dip, which is gonna allow me to open up that lower ab. And then what I'm gonna do is slowly try to bring it in and then right back down. And I'm not trying to shoot it up. I'm going nice and slow. Watch, pause right here. And I'm thinking about trying to pull upwards. I'm not trying to kick my legs up. I'm trying to pull my hips into my chest. So, again, breathing out when you're coming up. Oh shit. The caveat here is the heavier your legs are and the bigger your legs are, the harder the movement is. You don't need a weight. My weight is the legs. Oh shit. I'll do a few more sets of this and then I'm gonna hit some arms. So usually I hit obliques too, but I'm not gonna do that today. I'll just hit that on another day. I'm fucking smoked already. Doesn't take much. All right, so I'm gonna start off with doing some arms. The first thing I'm gonna do is make sure that I stretch and I open up my biceps. Because again, when it comes to the posture, when the shoulders start to rotate forward because of bad posture, the biceps will start to tighten, okay? Now, kind of similar to the hamstrings and the ab concept, I wanna make sure I open up my biceps all the way. So what I wanna start with is something called a lengthening exercise. Not something that's just focusing on a squeeze, but something that's focusing on a full opening of the bicep. That way it's gonna allow me more access, it's gonna take any stress away from my shoulders, and it will actually allow me to hit my triceps more with the flex and the squeeze a little bit later, because I'm not gonna have an arm that's slightly kinked and my biceps gonna be tight. So I'm gonna get an angular bench here. I put this at about, what is this, like about 60 degrees-ish? Somewhere around there, 45-ish? We'll say anywhere from like 45 to we'll say like 50-ish degrees, okay? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kneel on this bench. I'm gonna have a single arm on this cable, and what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna curl it all the way to my head, right? So I'm gonna be leaning right here, and I'm curling on my head, okay? What this is gonna do is put me on a slight angle to allow me to open up my arm all the way. Because if I stand up straight like this, there's gonna be a limitation, and I'm actually gonna start to feel the tension pulling from the inside of my shoulder. But when I lean on a slight angle, it keeps that tension preserved on my bicep. So I'm going very slow with this. This is a very light exercise. Okay, and I'm focusing on a full stretch and a full squeeze. A full stretch and a full squeeze. Just taking it nice and easy. But again, trying to open up that bicep all the way, pinching my shoulder blade in the back, kind of leaning away from it a little bit. I'm just doing some reps here, warming up. Let's do the other side real quick so you can see from the back. Leaning, full stretch. Pinch that shoulder blade back and anchor it, because the bicep actually connects to the top of the shoulder blade, believe it or not. And so you want to anchor that. All right. Nice and easy. So again, get a little bench, put it on a slight angle, position the cable all the way up top, go super light with it, full extension of that bicep, and then focus on that squeeze coming through. Okay, so I already did a lengthening exercise to open up my biceps. Everything's feeling pretty good now. I feel like I got some good separation. I feel like I'm not getting any tension in my forearms anymore, nothing in my shoulders. So now what I'm gonna do is more of a shortening exercise, okay? Focus on just trying to squeeze that bicep as hard as I can. So what I have is an easy bar here, and easy bars look like this, okay? The difference between this and the straight bar is sometimes this can help complement your grip better and allow less stress in your forearms. A straight bar will force supination, which means it forces you to keep your hand open, which is actually the main function of your bicep. So straight bars are super beneficial, but sometimes when you have a little bit of asymmetry, which means like one of your shoulders sits higher than the other, sometimes you get like a weird tension in one of your wrists when you're doing a straight bar. This will help kind of prevent that because it puts your wrist in more of an angled position, which creates more strength, okay? So if you're having trouble with getting any pain in the wrists or your forearms, try one of these easy bars instead of a straight bar when you're doing your cable. So I'm gonna hook this up to a low cable here. Let me get a better angle. Okay, so I'm gonna put this on a lower cable here. And again, my bench is still inclined at that same incline I did that curl at, so around like 45-ish degrees. I'm gonna lean backwards, pinch my shoulder blades. I'll lean back and pinch my shoulder blades, okay? You don't want them forward like this. You want to pinch them, okay? Anchor them back. And then when I curl, I want to think about curling through the pinky side of my hand, okay? And I'm just trying to squeeze my biceps. Okay, so nice, slow, and controlled reps here. Trying to get a big squeeze. And again, find that range that feels best. Move your elbows around. Sometimes you may need to get a little bit of movement. Like see how my elbows come forward a little bit so I can squeeze that contraction all the way? So play around with it, see what feels best. And again, start with a lighter weight load. And you feel too much in your forearms, focus on squeezing the biceps. Don't just focus on moving the weight, okay? So nice and slow. Okay, I'm gonna take a little break from biceps for a little bit. Get a little warmed up. I'll do some free weight stuff in a little bit here, but what I'm gonna start with now is a little bit of tricep activation. So when you're doing triceps, there's so many variations that you can do. You wanna get a mix of like pushing down movements, okay? Extension movements, and then also like an overhead stretch. That's what's gonna help complement all three heads of those tricep, okay? So what I'm gonna do first is a little bit of push down just to kind of lube up the elbows here. This should be very light. But what I wanna focus on doing is literally a push down. I'm not trying to spread and separate the rope, okay? I'm just trying to push it down right now. I'm not focused on an extension. So right here, keeping the elbows nice and tight. I'm just focusing on a nice, tight, close grip push down. Keeping my elbows mashed into my sides, shoulder blades pinch, because again, biceps and triceps also connect to the shoulder blade. And when I stabilize my shoulder blade, I can get more contraction coming from my triceps. So again, taking it nice and slow. I'm not trying to max out any crazy weights here. I'm just going nice and easy, trying to pump some blood into that tricep. Okay, so now I'm gonna get some individual arms on the cables with triceps. And let me show you something. A lot of people get like tennis elbow or golfer's elbow, and that's because of the instability in their forearms, because a lot of times you're doing these curling motions, right? And you're doing a lot of pulling movement, and you're doing a lot of gripping. So you're training the inside part of your forearm, but seldom do you actually train the outside of your forearm. There's a little muscle called your anconeus here that usually people get pain and tension into because they're not training it enough, right? The muscles that flex your wrist in get really strong and they ball out, but then the muscles that extend your wrist open are really weak, right? So one way that you can simultaneously train that in your triceps is like a reverse grip extension, because you're training that part of the forearm to help it balance out and neutralize the elbow and wrist. And then you're also getting a lot of tricep activation because it's primarily a tricep exercise. So let me show you what I'm talking about. You're gonna wanna get like a single handle here, right? Something like a D shape. I like one that preferably has a rope on it because it has a little bit more versatility with the grip, which means that you can rotate it around to try to find what works best for you. And then we'll do like a reverse grip extension. So let me move this over a little bit. Okay, so when we're doing these reverse grip extensions, put the cable up nice and high, go light. I have 10 pounds on here, nothing crazy, okay? And when I'm doing this extension-based movement, I'm trying to keep my elbow close to my side and I'm trying to flex it down, okay? I'm not just trying to push, I'm trying to flex and extend, okay? So keeping your elbow nice and tight to the side, and you're gonna flex all the way down, okay? Kind of coming across body a little bit. Pinching that shoulder blade, anchoring it up, coming down to a squeeze. Because now, when I come across my body like this, I'm gonna stretch my tricep all the way, and then when I go down straight and I flex my wrist, I'm gonna get a little bit of activation in that muscle that people usually get pain in, right? They usually get like tennis elbow in, but I'm also getting that tricep engaged too, so I'm training that muscle, okay? So if you're getting a lot of like elbow pain, this will be a great way to help fix that. Let me put this down a little bit so you guys can see a little bit more of that movement. Okay. So help fix your tennis elbow and help you build some meaty triceps here. Okay, I have done this exercise a few times. I've done this exercise a few times before in other videos, but this is how I actually do skull crushers. I like to do them on a cable because with a free bar, I tend to feel a lot of tension in my elbows because you're using gravity as your profile and your lever, right? Which basically means if I use a weight, it's only getting pulled in one direction down, right? But if I use a cable, it'll be more of an angular tension, and that's what I'm trying to look for with my tricep. That's why people lean forward when they do their tricep extension movements on cables, because when you put that angle on there, you're gonna get a lot more stress where it belongs, which is inside the tricep muscle itself and not the elbow, right? It doesn't take away, it takes away that shear. So again, positioning the bench, laying back flat here, I have a straight bar on it that's gonna allow me to fully supinate my wrist to get that full stretch coming in through my tricep, okay? So I'm gonna lay back flat here. I'm gonna grab this bar. All right, let's grab this bar. And nice and easy. Whew. All right, so towards the end there, you seen how I put my feet on the bench and I pushed my hips up. That was essentially so I could pin down my shoulder blades, because like I was mentioning, your triceps actually connect to the shoulder blade itself. So I want to learn to anchor that as much as possible. You're good, man. Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. I just got my camera here.
I know how that goes.
Yeah, you're good. So again, I elevated the hips up to put pressure on the shoulder blades to anchor them down so I can pinch them. Because if I mobilize that too much, I'm going to get stress in my elbows and it's going to take it out of my triceps. So towards the end there, a little bit of modification, but that's what I was mentioning. Sometimes your reps look a little bit different because you're trying to focus on the feeling, not the finish, right? You're trying to engage that muscle to max capacity. And sometimes that requires you to maneuver a little bit. So I'm going to do a few more sets here, and then we're going to go into some dumbbell curls. I don't know how many times somebody has to explain how to do a dumbbell curl, but the big thing to keep in mind when you're doing any type of curling motion is the main function, which is supination, right? Which basically means, you see how I turn my hand up like I'm holding a bowl of soup, right? Supination. You're rotating the pinky towards the ceiling. You see how my bicep changes positions when I just rotate my hand? That's the part people miss, is they're just getting these curls like this to the inside, but they're not getting that full rotation that actually squeezes the whole bicep, okay? So something you're gonna wanna focus on is whenever you're doing curls, you wanna curl from the pinky side of your hand, okay? Don't curl like this. A lot of people, they're coming to the inside and they're not getting much contraction. You wanna rotate the pinky all the way towards the ceiling. So when I'm doing these curls, grabbing onto my dumbbells here, I'm trying to rotate through the pinky side of my hand, okay? So when I'm curling, pinky side of my hand towards the ceiling. And that's what's going to give you that full look to the bicep, with limiting your forearms. So again, big thing to keep in mind, supination. And if you can't rotate your hand, then you need to drop your weight, okay? Rotating through the pinky side of your hand to fully squeeze that bicep. A little bit of cardio now. Jump into my 3 speed. Hit about a 5 incline. Like I said, nothing crazy. I'm trying to keep this in. Let me drop this down a little bit. Okay. So I'm trying to keep this cardio in consistently during this downtime. Speaking of which, I probably need to start addressing, am I doing another show or not? Because I've been getting a lot of people asking the question. You know, I've mentioned that I want to, but there's been a lot of things surfacing in my personal life that have started to drag some attention away from the competition scene. And also I want to get a full registered health checkup. So I have a concierge physician that I go to. He's a naturopath. He is a former fitness coach of, I think, over like 10 or 15 years. And he's also a medical physician. So he's somebody who looks at and monitors my blood work. I send all my clients to him. So what I'm going to do is actually get my blood work done tomorrow. So I'm going to skip my workout, check all my health markers, see if everything's within ranges. And then from there, we'll make a decision as to what to do long-term in terms of show planning and prep. But, you know, I think initially my feelings were I wanted to jump right back into something because I was already pretty lean. And I'm like, why not just hit the last show of the year, right? But, you know, the more I think about it, I feel like I pulled a lot of attention away from other factors in my life, you know, business, coaching, you know, my own client base. Me and my wife are trying to get a house right now. Also, the time I spend with her, you know, she obviously takes sacrifices too with this. It's not just me in terms of, you know, date nights, you know, spending a lot of time together, because this becomes a very selfish sport. So I have made the decision to pull out of a show this year. So I'm not going to compete. What I'm going to do is take some time off and actually grow, because knowing that my weight cap is 217, it gives me a little bit more room to work with and maneuver. Like even right now, after I've been feeding my body back to baseline calories through this entire week, I'm only sitting at like 211 and I'm staying really lean. I mean, I still have veins in my abs. So my weight's holding true. But what I want to do is get my health checked, because after 12 weeks, 13 weeks plus of constant metabolic stress, like doing cardio, calorie restrictions, supplementation, I just want to make sure everything's within good ranges and I'm healthy before I start the next prep, because you don't want to go into something as intensive as like a prep without making sure that, number one, your health is within check. I don't anticipate anything being out of ranges. However, it's always good to be safe rather than sorry. So I'm going to actually take the time off, spend time growing my business, spend time with my wife, We're going to purchase a property out in Fountain Hills. And we got a lot of other ventures that I want to pursue in terms of vacations that we got coming up. And I don't want to impede any of those things by trying to shove and force a competition in there. So as much as I'd like to, I think it's the rational and the mature decision to pull back and hold off. The lifestyle's not going to go on hold. I still like waking up real early, eating the same foods, getting in my routine. I still will live the active athlete lifestyle, but I think I'm going to take a little pull back right now in terms of the competition scene. Have a little bit more flexibility and just try to enjoy life, right? And then I'll just make a plan for next year and see which one that I want to hit. Because these things take time, it takes some preparation, because even when you're in your downtime, we'll say like when you're in your season of like growth, construction, right, building, the off season, you still got to follow some sort of structure, right? You can't just let everything go to shit. It's like, if you do that, you're going to gain a bunch of body fat, put yourself into a hole. You'll get off routine, and it's going to make it a lot harder to get back into it. So even if you're not in the competition scene itself, say it's you going through these peaks and valleys with your own fitness, it's to your advantage to try to always stay on. Maybe you're not trying to like cut down for a vacation or maybe your birthday or something like that. Maybe you're just, working out every single day, trying to maintain your health. Whatever your goal is, you may go through some ebb and flow where sometimes you push a little bit harder, sometimes you pull the brakes. However, you always want to keep a constant, right? You always want to keep your training in check. You want to eat relatively structured with some flexibility in mind. However, you don't want to just let everything go to the shitter, because it's really hard to get out of that hole. So, a couple things in my personal life paying attention to and putting some focus in some other areas. And also this, I love this side of things. I'm trying to make a daily commitment to filming every single day, mainly because I like it. It provides me with some sort of structure. And also it adds a little bit of pizzazz. And also it's a way of giving back, I think I mentioned in other videos is, you go through losing seasons and sometimes you look for some source of inspiration or encouragement or some wisdom or even some education. You're looking for something to pull you out of the hole and maybe to start the next journey or chapter for yourself. And I know for me, being in the scene of online YouTube has definitely provided me with that in the past. Having people that have helped provide me with some sort of clarity, structure, encouragement, inspiration, hope. And I'm hoping that's what I can do for somebody at some point, even if it's one person. Because we all go through those seasons. In fact, if you develop a skeptic mindset, you probably always feel like you're in that season if you can't find something to be grateful for or something to look forward to. And I would say if you're in that season in life, like you're losing, you feel like nothing's going in a positive direction, I encourage you to find a way to challenge yourself to advance. Start by reading a book, start by trying to educate yourself in something. Just look for something even that has entertainment value in it. Like, we're here for a short time, not a long time, but it can sure as hell feel like a long time if you have nothing in your life that you feel like you're progressing towards. And that can make it very painful and arduous. So find something you enjoy. Like this lifestyle I enjoy. I enjoy waking up at 3:30 in the morning, making my food, doing my workouts, coaching people, filming. I get a rush home at the end of my day after a long 10, 12-hour day, get to compile all this stuff together. It's a creative outlet for me. It's a source of entertainment, but also provides value, And And there's long-term growth potential coming from that. Building a brand, connecting with people online, making new friends, building a community. There's many different extension elements that can come from something like that. So I encourage you to try to find something that has some long-term investment value or even entertainment value if you feel like you're in that losing season, right? That'll help definitely provide you with some sort of direction and clarity. And also spend some time every morning retraining yourself to think more positively. Being a coach for so long, I think the one thing that I've ran into with most people is they start to program this negative way of thinking, right? It's skepticism, it's criticism, it's judgment, it's problem searching, right? Problem searching, not problem solving. There's a big difference. They're looking for issues. And when you look for them, you'll certainly find them. And then when you find them, well, that will reinforce the thinking for you to keep searching for them, because then you think, well, I found a problem, there must be more, right? You got to eliminate that altogether, because there will be many problems in your life that you don't need to search for, that will pop into your life that you need to deal with in the moment, or even problems that you could plan for in the future that maybe aren't problems, but maybe it's more like active problem solving, which is investment, right? I want to solve a problem in the future that I don't yet have. You'll have plenty of those to deal with in life, aside from you waking up every morning and saying, oh shit, it's Monday, right? Oh shit, I'm out of shape. I have low energy levels. I hate this person at work. I don't have any relationships of value in my life. I don't feel like I have anything that entertains me outside of a work setting. Whatever the case is, it's very easy to find negatives. The hard part is finding the positives, And I don't generally default to negative thinking, and I think I've just trained myself to do that over years of gratitude and also coaching. And I don't encourage you to get into that system of thinking where everything's negative either, because it's really hard to get out of, right? There should always be positives in a situation, even with mistakes and failures. That is success, right? You've learned something new, you advanced, you've gotten experience, you found new ways of maybe not doing something, right? Maybe don't go down that fucking path, right? You'll find a way to make it work for you with time. And you're going to be broken many times. You're built up, you hit the peak, but then when you're at the peak, you don't want to just stay there. You get to the peak of the mountain and you stay up there for a couple hours and you're like, well, what's next? You start that move, that goalpost to your happiness, and you start to search for the next venture and next journey. And it's okay that you do that, but you need to do it with a positive frame of mind, not, oh, well, fuck, this is boring now, I need to do something else because I'm not happy. It should be more adventurous, like, hey, what else can I do? How far can I go? What's the next chapter look like for me? It's a much easier way of operating. I'll tell you, when you wake up every day and you're grateful just for the fact that you woke up, like, you don't have to fucking be here. Like, you didn't even choose to be here in the first place. You got to remember that. Like, it wasn't like you had a decision at the origin of your life and said, what do I want? Do I want to be a boy or do I want to be a woman, right? Do I want to be rich or poor, right? Do I want to live in America or Africa? It's like you didn't have those decisions when you were first born. Like, you were just kind of popped into the world, right? So who the hell says you even have those choices? So learn to be grateful for what you do have, and then just make the most of it. I'll frequently look at people that are disabled and I'll think, well, shit, that could have been me, And yet I still see people complaining that they can't do something or they're too tired. It's like, motherfucker, there's this little kid sitting in bed right now with fucking cancer. He's getting chemotherapy treatments. The fuck are you complaining about? That's stupid. You have health, opportunity, and if anything, you've dug yourself into that hole. So don't sit there and say, boo-hoo me, do something to get yourself out of it. See it as a challenge, an opportunity. And also think about what you could be at the end of it. And don't think about what you have to do, think about what you get to do, right? It's just a total change of mind. You got to learn to protect your mind because the architecture of it's very delicate. And you can definitely reshape it into thinking more negative and making your life feel like it's just fucking never ending. And it's just constant obstacles and problems instead of opportunities, and journeys. If you change the context of your thinking, it's going to shape your entire reality. It's going to make you feel a lot better. I promise. If you just wake up in the morning and the first thing you do when you get out of bed is just find a reason to be grateful. Like, holy shit, that's awesome. I woke up this morning. Look at this. There's not bombs being dropped on my fucking house, right? It's not somebody knocking on my door robbing me right now. And I think when you grow up in an environment that has harsh realities, it really will center your frame of mind. With me, grew up poverty, very poor. Not by choice, but by circumstance. And not that that's anybody's fault, it was just the way things were, right? But I think people often forget the gifts that come with struggle, right? Like, for instance, poverty. People say, well, if you could choose to be poor, you could choose to be rich as a kid, which one would you choose? And I think I would choose to be poor again, right? Because there's gifts that come with that. There's definitely perspective, a new vantage point. Your perception of time is altered. And then on top of that, you also learn to be resourceful. And resourcefulness is one of those things that you can't develop unless you need to. If you live in abundance, you just become entitled. You think about the world in a very narrow view, as in, you were born with these things, so that's the way things should always be. What happens when they're not that way? What happens when you don't have that money and security and that blanket anymore? What happens when you don't all of a sudden have your health because some freak accident happens with your genetic nature and you develop some crazy disease that you never knew existed? Again, perspective can change. And that's why I think if you grow up in adversity, it's kind of like the hero's tale. If anybody knows who Joseph Campbell is, he wrote The Hero of a Thousand Faces. He was a mythologist, and he studied, essentially, the life of humanity through the psychological lens. And he says that there's something called the hero's journey, which is the hero, if you think about a Disney movie or a Marvel movie or anything, the hero always grows up in adversity, right? And through that adversity, they're crafted into the hero, right? The hero never starts off being the badass. That's usually the villain, right? So it's through those struggles you build strength, you build perspective, and you develop a whole bunch of skills and even like resourcefulness, for instance, that can help you along the way. And I think it's very easy to spot somebody who possesses some level of entitlement because they were given things in life, because they get shitty when things don't go their way. And it's like, look, nothing's fucking promised to you at all. Like, you could very much one day lose everything. I've had clients that fucking own Fiji Islands that have lost everything. I've had, people who have lost kids, that were young. They worked really hard. They did in vitro and they did all these things to get a kid into their life because they had issues with conception, and then their kid ended up dying. Like, fuck. It just makes me want to shake people sometimes and say, what the fuck are you complaining about? Your life is so fucking easy. It's crazy. So, change your vantage point. Don't look down on life and think, oh, boo-hoo me. Think, holy shit, why don't you look up for a second from the ground and look in front of you and see all the opportunities, not the problems, right? It's crazy because the wealthiest people that I've met, they have an opportunistic way of thinking, right? And like I said, I have clients that own Fiji Islands and fucking, damn near $1 billion companies. And I'll tell you, the difference is in their thought process. Not only are they extremely grateful people, but they're very positive people. They don't see things in negatives. They fail as quick as possible, as early as possible. They take chances. And they don't see their failures as setbacks, they see them as advancement. Because you've learned something new, you've developed a new skill, you've got experience, wisdom, you have taken a step in the direction that you want to go in, of your choosing, not of life's circumstances. People wait until shit happens and they get reactive, like their health goes sideways, or they wait till they lose their job, or the economy goes sideways, or whatever the hell excuse that they use. You're being reactive. Everybody understands the word investment. and what that means on a financial level. But do you know what that means on a psychological level, on a health level? Are you doing things to invest into those things, your emotional and spiritual well-being? Are you waking up every morning and being grateful and projecting a positivity that helps other people around you? Are you waking up every morning and eating healthy foods, drinking water, staying active, getting some sun, working out, taking care of your physical well-being in your body? Because if all those things go sideways, you can't help but think negative, right? If I got a fucking nail in the bottom of my foot, I don't care how beautiful the weather is outside, right? I don't care if there's, you won't care if there's pretty ladies giving you attention. You got a fucking nail in the bottom of your foot, right? If you have something in your life that's a nail in the bottom of your foot, whether that be poor quality health or a job that you hate, how the fuck do you expect to think positive when you have these aggressors in your life that are preventing that from happening? I can tell you it won't happen. It's going to do the opposite. So you got to find the things that affect your way to think positive, right? And you seed those fuckers out. You rip them out like weeds. Get rid of them. And you'll see how much better your life improves. But all right, friends, that's going to be it for this video. I'm going to finish up here. I got about another minute to do my cardio. Run downstairs. I have my shake, a rice cake, have all my meals packed for the day. Then I got my first client that's coming in about 30 minutes, so I got to hurry this shit up. So, all right. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like button down below. Make sure you subscribe if you're not. Make sure you share it with your friends. Spread the wisdom, spread the positivity. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.